Let me start this video by saying I can't promise that this is going to be an interesting video, but it will be an informative video. I'll try and keep it fairly short. The last video that I made was just sort of talking a little bit about the journey that I've had, the health journey of suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome and painful bladder syndrome. More recently, I've had some pretty big leaps forward in terms of understanding the illnesses, and actually the really major leap forwards have been differentiating between chronic fatigue syndrome and other issues that I have that also cause very similar symptoms. And so that has been one of the major issues with moving forward is I actually feel that I have, for the most part, overcome the chronic fatigue syndrome. However, there's been some other things that have caused similar symptoms and some other symptoms, namely insomnia being one of those things. And so for the last couple of years, I've been so focused on chronic fatigue syndrome and how to fix that I've not realized that some of these other symptoms are nothing to do. Well, they have something to do with it, but treating those things in the same way that I've been treating chronic fatigue syndrome doesn't help. In fact, if anything, it can make things worse, which is interesting. So part of the chronic fatigue syndrome has been megadosing with a very special form of vitamin B1. I'm not going to go into the details of that. Highly successful 4-month period with that. Also for painful bladder syndrome. What has come to light more recently is a histamine intolerance and also an oxalate toxicity that I have. The way that I discovered I had a histamine intolerance, histamine is found in foods. Some contain low amounts, some contain medium, high, very high. If you think of hay fever, you take an antihistamine for hay fever or something like that. That's because you've got a histamine release and it's causing inflammation. So I've had a intolerance to histamines from foods, so excessive amounts. I haven't had the enzymes required to break those apart and to eliminate them. We need histamines, but sometimes we can have an excessive amount. So a low histamine diet helped expose my histamine intolerance. One of the effects of that was a reduction in fatigue and brain fog, which is actually symptoms that are common to chronic fatigue syndrome. But the major one was actually an improvement to my sleep, or major reduction in wakefulness or restlessness, and a major increase in REM sleep. Before the low histamine diet, I was for probably 3 or 4 years, I'd been having about 30 minutes to 45 minutes of REM sleep per night, and just restlessness, waking constantly because of pain or needing to go to the loo. What are we up to? 4 minutes. Got to reduce this. And so when I went on the low histamine diet, suddenly I was getting 2 hours to 3 hours of REM sleep and not all the wakefulness. Now, that was fantastic for like 7 weeks. However, what came to light further was that oxalate toxicity has an impact on histamine release as well, just to complicate things. And so the low histamine diet that I was on, I was eating a lot of celery. In fact, I stuck to celery, coleslaw with pine nuts or sesame seeds and sweet potato and like some steak or some protein of some sort. And what I didn't realize is that a lot of those things are actually very high in oxalates. And I already had oxalate toxicity and just adding to the load. And that was causing wakefulness, and it was impacting my sleep. And so what I've realized is, and for those of you that I've been, sharing my journey, it's been a lot of, sometimes I'm winning, sometimes I'm, it's this tightrope that I walk on of having success and then going backwards and not understanding why. And this explains why, finally. So now, well, just to add to it, a little bit more to it is that, okay, so you might think, okay, well, you need to go on a low oxalate diet. Well, it's not that simple. So there's such thing as eating too many foods that are high in these oxalates. But if you reduce that to too low, well, then you start dumping these oxalate crystals. They're like little shards of glass. They can come through your skin. They can come out your eyes. They can affect your bladder. So anywhere there's inflammation, they can cause further irritation, which is what I've been noticing, that my painful bladder syndrome is also inconsistent. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's not so okay. And it seems to line up with consuming too many oxalates or not eating enough. And so my body starts dumping oxalates, which causes issues as well. So again, these are things that can be fixed and reversed, and one day, hopefully, I'll never have to be on a low histamine diet or a low oxalate diet. But for the time being, this is the way forward for me. Yeah, that's probably enough info. But I just thought I'd share that. Because you may know somebody with chronic fatigue syndrome or M.E or fibromyalgia or painful bladder syndrome. The mistake is to attribute all the symptoms to those things. It's because it's like you kind of find a problem and then all of the focus and attention goes on that one thing. Usually it's probably several systems that have gone down. Yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of an update. I should now be able to be a bit more consistent in feeling better. It's just a matter of finding my baseline in terms of what I can consume in oxalates without triggering the excessive loading and excessive dumping. So, fun times. But at least I know what the hell's going on now. Anyway, so there's a little bit of an update. There's so much more to it, but it would just bamboozle you. So, but if you do want to know more, send me a message and I'll happily talk to you about it. Signing out. Boy.